Welcome to the annual meeting of the William & Mary Alumni Association. Thank you for joining us today. I'm Anna Hatfield, a member of the class of 1996, and I'm proud to serve as the president of the association. The WMAA is a non-stock corporation incorporated under the laws of the Commonwealth of Virginia, and per our bylaws, we are required to host an annual meeting, not that we wouldn't do it anyway. Talking about the good work of the WMAA is always a pleasure. I'll be joined in today's presentation by Marilyn Midyett, class of 75 and the CEO of the Alumni Association, and by George Cruiser, class of 1984, board member at large, member of the executive committee, immediate past treasurer and chair of our finance and investment committee. He's filling in for current treasurer John Cole-Scott, who is traveling. I also extend a warm welcome on behalf of the board of directors. Since it will do no good to ask them to stand, I will introduce them with the slide. These are the members of your Alumni Association board. More information about them, as well as other topics, including programs, events, benefits, and services, can be found on our website at www.wmalumni.com. This is our second time presenting the annual meeting in a virtual setting, something about which we have all become more accustomed, for better and for worse. Today, we're in a webinar format, and the ability to have real-time exchange is limited, but we will still be able to entertain your questions and comments. To pose a question, please use the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen. This will allow you to enter a question, and we will close the session by answering those. Before we get started with today's review, which covers the fiscal year 21, which ran from July 1st, 2020 to June 30, 2021, I thought it would be helpful to start with a little history. We were founded July 4th, 1842 and incorporated in 1923, making us the country's 8th oldest alumni organization. All alumni, more than 100,000, are members of the non-dues paying association. We're an independent nonprofit, 501c3. We have a 24-member governing board plus the immediate past president. And we most recently restructured in June 2014 with an MOU between WMAA and the university. This redefined the relationship between the university and the Alumni Association in terms of resources, staffing, and responsibilities. Our purpose is to provide value-added programs and services to our alumni and friends that create lifelong connections and loyalty to William & Mary that result in support, ensuring her sustainability. And our mission statement is shown here. The Alumni Association will cultivate a vibrant and inclusive alumni community committed to deepening connections with each other and William & Mary for all time coming. Whatever we do must be good for both alumni and the university. And now I would like for our CEO, Marilyn Midyett, class of 75, to review some of the priorities and successes achieved by our Alumni Association over the past year.
Thank you, President Hatfield, and good morning to everyone. Just a little housekeeping before we begin covering some of the specifics for those things that we accomplished during the year. A reminder that this is a review of our fiscal year 21, which ran from July 1, 2020 through June 30th, 2021, which of course all occurred during pandemic. We are now currently in our FY22 calendar year, which started on July 1. But again, today we will be covering all of the information for our fiscal year 21, which include the financials that George will go over later. So again, just to level set what period of time we're talking about, which was indeed 100%. I say 100%, I'll say 99.9% under pandemic conditions, but we were able to squeeze in a few in-person events towards the end of the fiscal year and before the Delta variant snuck upon us. But each year we begin our work with a review of what's going on in our profession. And we reach out to others in our marketplace. We read the research that has been done, we review the trade publications, and we do this to really understand what's considered best in class for alumni engagement. And I'd like to start today by bringing to your attention and sharing with you 5 key characteristics of what's considered high performance, and best-in-class alumni engagement. They include signature events that are well branded, and they provide a good mix and balance of professional, cultural, intellectual, and social programming. They also tend to provide differentiated outreach that focuses on affinity, diversity, identity, and inclusion groups, as well as student programming. And certainly in today's world, alumni career management and professional networking is an area of great importance that has attracted a lot of interest and starting to attract more investment as well. Providing opportunities that not only encourage people to participate in person, but also provide an avenue to participate virtually is really key, as it allows you to reach your alumni no matter where they're located in our global society and in the world. Last but not least, I think it goes without saying that you have to do all of this undergirded by exceptional communication in every form. So with those characteristics in mind, the Alumni Association Board of Directors developed the following strategic priorities that were intended to really inform our planning. And the priorities allowed the board's focus to really zero in on the funding and the resources that would be required for the association to be successful in advancing its mission, and for the staff to advance the work through execution. Our goal is always to create opportunities that are considered value added by our alumni, so that they're really motivated to stay connected with the association, with each other, and with the university. And when we develop and distribute our programs, we do it through a lens of inclusivity, because we want to make sure that we meet our alumni where they are. We don't leave any alumnus behind. And we're building a culture of both engagement and philanthropy, because the two really go hand in hand. You cannot do one without the other. It's simply impossible to have engagement programming without the appropriate philanthropy to underwrite those programs. So creating a diversified and stable financial model is really, really important to us. And you'll hear more about how we're doing that later on in the presentation. Again, just to mention, all of this was accomplished through primarily a digital platform in our fiscal year 2021. And with that, I'm going to go through some of the areas that we focused on when we were delivering our programming. We've done that through, as I said, both in-person and virtual programs. We have a very, very small staff, and our work is only possible with the dedication and commitment of our volunteer alumni leaders who are located both in our regional and chapter networks, as well as our affinity and our identity networks, all working collaboratively with staff. And we just simply could not do this without the extraordinary leadership and support of those volunteers. Again, kudos to them, many thanks to them. Our work is simply not possible without their support and engagement. And I might add that that certainly includes our board members who spend countless hours on behalf of our over 100,000 alumni, trying to be very diligent and focused and good stewards of our limited resources to deliver all of the programming that fulfills our mission. So here's a sampling of the many programs we hosted from July 1, 2020 to June 30 of 2021, again, on mostly a virtual platform. During the year, we converted many of our traditional annual programs to that digital platform. And in October of 2020, we hosted homecoming and reunions in a virtual format with over 55 programs held during a 12-day period. And the sunset ceremony is always a favorite of homecoming weekend, and we made that available for on-demand viewing, and it was actually viewed by over 1,000 alumni worldwide. We also hosted Traditions Weekend, which celebrates our 50th reunion class, as well as the Old Guard. And those events actually took place over a 4-day period with over 12 virtual programs. Yule Log, also an annual favorite, was offered online, as was our Alumni Admission Weekend program. And that one is focused on helping our many alumni who have college-age students to try to take some of the angst and mystery out of the college application process. We had over 350 virtual and in-person programs that ranged anywhere from cooking classes and cocktail making, as well as a panel of alumni authors, to online museum tours and webinars on foreign service that featured a number of our alumni who are former ambassadors. We also had a very engaging program with our alumni who have been very instrumental in developing the Pfizer and the Moderna vaccines. We were joined by an alumna who is the president of the American Academy of Pediatrics, along with Michael Powell, a former FCC commissioner and current president of the National Cable and Telecommunications Association, joined by Jill Ellis, we all know as the 2-time World Cup winning women's soccer team. Just a wide variety of very interesting and topical programs, and we were delighted to be able to feature so many alumni who were enthusiastic about participating, and certainly allowed us to showcase the success and the contributions, the many contributions our alumni are making both nationally and in the world today. Last but not least, I said we were able to squeeze in a few in-person events before the Delta variant arrived, and one of those commencement of 2020, due to social distancing requirements, we had to host 6 different commencement ceremonies, but we were able to induct over 2,000 newly minted graduates into the Alumni Association with our pinning ceremony. Earlier, I mentioned how important professional networking and career management is, and we have a platform known as One Tribe, One Network, which is where we provide a lot of career development resources and networking opportunities. And some of the programs that were offered under that umbrella include online networking hours, breakfast and business cards, a webinar series, and when we're able to do this in person, we generally have workplace events that are known as Tribe at Work. Now, last year during February, we held a Professionals Week. It was held from February 22nd through the 26th, and it had 11 events and 16 speakers. We'll be doing the same this coming February from February 28th to March 4th, and we're always looking for volunteers. So if you'd like to help us with that, please let us know. I mentioned earlier that it goes without saying that we simply can't do our work with a legion of volunteers helping us. And you can never say thank you enough. So we actually every year host an event that awards what's known as the Douglas N. Morton Service Awards to our exceptional volunteers who've gone above and beyond. Doug Morton was class of '62, and he served in almost every volunteer capacity that there is at William and Mary. And so in 2016, his widow, Marilyn Brown from Denver, Colorado, actually endowed our awards. We were able to, last September, give those awards out again virtually. And the Alumni Service Award recipients were Ben Boone, Jim and Ronnie Taylor, and Molly Wolf. Our Staff Service Award went to Associate Provost Anne-Marie Stock, and our Coach of the Year went to Dane Fisher, who was also awarded the CAA Conference Coach of the Year and is our men's head basketball coach. I think it looks like everybody's having a great time opening their presents, but I think the ones who enjoyed it the most were probably Dane's children. And the pièce de résistance of our awards Alumni Medallion. The Alumni Medallion is actually the most prestigious award that an alumnus can receive from the Alumni Association. And it recognizes our alumni who have really had professional lives that are extraordinary. They've also been leaders in civic engagement and in their communities or the state or even the nation. And they have had a long-term, consistent dedication, devotion, advocacy, assistance, and commitment to William and Mary. And the award really reflects the honor that the recipients bring to the university and to all of its alumni through their actions and their many contributions. Last year, in February 2020, we were able to celebrate and recognize Bob Trice, Sharon Philpott, Sue Warner, and B. McLeod in an online virtual engagement ceremony that was held right after our annual meeting. And as Anna mentioned before, we're doing it this year in November virtually because we also recognize that by waiting until February, by the time we were reviewing this information with our alumni, it was already 8 months old. And so we wanted to also bring the information to you all in closer proximity to the end of our fiscal year. But we'll be honoring 4 more during Charter Day of 2022, which is going to be February 11th through the 13th. And we really hope you will join us for that. It's a very, very fun weekend, and it recognizes the granting of the university's Royal Charter to William and Mary, and it's kind of a birthday party all weekend long. So if you can make it, we would really encourage you to do so. Our second strategic priority is to promote an inclusive culture of alumni engagement and philanthropy. And our affinity groups include Young Guard and Old Guard participants. Our Young Guard actually represents alumni who graduated within the last 10 years. And our Old Guard represents alumni who graduated 50 or more years ago. Our Association of 1775 is our military and veterans group, which is a very, very active group. And it's gained a lot of traction with the establishment of the Office of Military Affairs, which reports directly to the president. And later on this afternoon at the Alumni House, they'll not only be having an award ceremony, but they will be having a whole lot of tailgating in honor of Veterans Day, and the stadium will be full of a lot of our veterans as well. And we're just very, very honored to be able to recognize those who have served. The game this afternoon starts at 3:30. It's against JMU, and you can see it on Flow Sports. Now, our focus on our identity and inclusion groups has really, really grown over the course of the last 3 years when we created a department within the Office of Alumni Engagement to focus on that. And the areas of support that we're providing include alumni initiatives, our Huon Willis Association, which is our Black Alumni Association, the Crimdell Association, which represents our LGBTQ alumni, Latinx alumni, and our Asian Pacific Islander and Middle Eastern alumni. So here's a sampling of the programs that we hosted during fiscal year 21 in support of affinity and identity groups. Again, almost all delivered on a digital or virtual platform. In FY21, we saw the inauguration of our Welcome to the City program series, which we hosted for our Young Guard, and it included a full week of virtual events which focused on health and wellness, diversity, equity, and inclusion, and career development. We were also able to squeeze in 3 in-person events in DC, Richmond, and Virginia Beach once things began to open up. We also hosted more than a dozen virtual alumni initiative events under the brand or the moniker of William and Mary Women. And those included a series on leadership during crises, women in STEAM, science, technology, engineering, the arts, and math. and a series on women's health that was very well attended and received. And quite honestly, our women's program in general has received a lot of national attention. We constantly receive phone calls from other universities across the country asking what we're doing in this regard and how we've been able to be so successful with our Society of 1918. The Lemon Project was a research project that the university began almost 10 years ago, and it brought William & Mary's history with slavery to light. Many of our alumni were not familiar with it, and this virtual education program that we provided was also very well attended, and it facilitated some really deep, rich conversations that are so important around those subjects. In 2019, we launched our William & Mary Inclusion Leadership Circles with the primary goal of really deepening engagement as well as volunteer leadership and philanthropy with our alumni that was focused on the identity of lens and the lenses of race, ethnicity, and sexual orientation. And in 2020, these leadership circles of alumni really started talking in earnest about their own priorities, their own initiatives, and how they were going to deliver against the commitments and the goals that they had, and have been so successful that we recently received a Case District Silver Award for our efforts in this area. And for those of you who aren't familiar with Case, it's the Council for Advancement and Support of Education. It's an industry think tank for alumni relations, communications, development, marketing, and advancement services. Many of you may have read just most recently in our winter edition of the alumni, or excuse me, the fall edition of the Alumni magazine about our Asian Centennial that we're celebrating, because 2021 marks the 100th anniversary of the first student of Asian heritage to attend William & Mary. Arthur Matsu, who graduated in 1927, was a star quarterback of the football team. And we've had a series of events already that will continue through 2022 as well in honor of that centennial. And last but not least, I mentioned that a key characteristic of a high-performing alumni association was student outreach and student programming. And in that area, we hosted a very successful one set. In fact, we had all-time records of more than 800 students attending our Cheers to Your First Year, Cheers to Your Senior Year celebrations, and our One Tribe, One Day celebrations. So with that, let's talk about, in summary, all that we accomplished, because it was a very, very successful year. I mentioned earlier, we hosted more than 350 in-person and virtual events, actually provided engagement opportunities for more than 27,000 alumni, which was an all-time record in 1 year. It was a 17% increase in the number of events. As you can imagine, it's easier. Doesn't necessarily take less time or effort on the part of staff, but it allows us to offer more programs more frequently than the ones that are held in person. We had a 17% increase in events with a 41% increase in our ethnic diversity of participants, and the overall registrations increased by 67%. Let me pause for a moment and see if we've had any questions that I might answer. And I don't think that I see any either in the Q&A box or in the chat box. So with that, I'm going to turn it over for a review of our financials. And George Cruiser, class of 1984, who is our most recent past treasurer and chair of our Finance and Investment Committee, is filling in today for our current treasurer, John Cole Scott. George?
Thank you, Marilyn. And it's an honor to fill in for John Cole Scott and talk about what is arguably the most interesting aspect of the Alumni Association, creating a strong, diversified financial model. The committee really was focused over the past year on finding realistic opportunities to enhance our earned income to support programming. And really everything we do is to support alumni programming. We reviewed ideas to increase donations to the Alumni Association, especially to the William and Mary Alumni Association Fund, and the fund is our unrestricted fund for operations. And exploring ways to use our beautiful new Alumni House both for as a home for our alumni, but also as a source of earned income when it's not being otherwise used. So now I'll turn to kind of the numbers piece of the presentation. As Marilyn and Anna both said, this is for the period ending June 30, 2021. We've recently completed our audit, and I can confidently say that we are in a sound financial position and a clean audit. We will post this presentation along with the 990 tax returns and the audit on our website in case anybody wants to print those out for their coffee table. To summarize some of the financials, the Alumni Association funds themselves did quite well in fiscal year 21. Our funds themselves grew to $13.5 million. That was an increase from $10.2 million from the prior year. And the funds held by others in endowment by the William and Mary Foundation grew to $6.38 million from $4.9 million. And much of that was the success of the overall, the broader stock market. So far, our investments in this year have grown to $12.46 million, and as of June 30th, but that as of today, or I guess yesterday morning, Friday morning, was $12.69 million. So we've gained another $200,000 since June 30th. So we'll move on to our pie chart, which is our sources of income and expense for fiscal year 21. This chart, while it may look like previous charts because of working in a pandemic and working almost completely virtually, we had very little income and our expenses were greatly reduced. And it's a little hard to see in a pie chart because it just, you know, the pie chart just takes whatever data and puts it in. But by comparison, our event receipts this year were 3%. You know, normally we would have a much larger 17 to 19% of our income would be event receipts. The fundraising, normally the fundraising this year was 53% of our expenses. I mean, we have some fixed expenses in fundraising. Normally that would be a much smaller number, and our total budget really became collapsed down because we had you know, so few expenses and so little income. So we really look forward to fiscal year 22 and 23 when we can return back to normal operations. A very important source of support for us is the support that comes from the Office of University Advancement, and they really provide all of the administrative support for salaries, and they provide important investments for us in alumni career networking, alumna programming, admission support for alumni families, and a holistic approach to volunteer management, to the volunteer management framework. And as Marilyn said, we couldn't do what we do with our staff if the staff didn't have the augmentation of a vibrant volunteer committee. And finally, this is probably the important slide from comparing us to other nonprofit organizations. And it's certainly not the slide that we would like to see, and and will not be the slide that we'll see for 22, and was not the slide we would have seen in FY19. We want programming services to be greater than 80% of our total expenses. In our prior years, they were 80 and 81% this year because, our costs were so far down, they became a much smaller piece. Administration, while we kept that as tight as we could possibly keep it, it still ended up being a third of our costs. In past years, it was 17 and 15% respectively. And fundraising is pretty much in line with what it had been in the past. So I will, I'll pause there. I don't think I see any questions in the Q&A. So Anna, I'm going to pass it back to you for priority number 4.
Thank you. Our 4th strategic priority was to focus on board development, ensuring a representative board across a wide range of demographics. We've devoted a lot of time towards development of a sustainable pipeline of potential volunteers for the future. I'm proud to say we have a long-range process with a robust pipeline and a long multi-year cultivation cycle to identify needs, then identify potential candidates through referral, research, or self-identification, followed up by conversations about volunteer service with candidates as appropriate. And now that you know who we are and what we do, that concludes the formal presentation. John, are there any questions?
I am not seeing any.
Any either.
No.
Well, we thank you for your attention and attendance and patience with this format, and thanks to John and Ann for always keeping us straight. Hearing no further business, this annual meeting of the Alumni Association is adjourned. Thank you all.